Such an intense intro.
I know, it's we're not trying to be that serious, but it comes off that
It's
way.
like,
Actually, we are.
Listen to the 9 pillars of
We-
dental marketing.
Yes, we are serious about this. It is, because it's kind of our. We depend on these 9 pillars, don't we? Happy New Year, everybody!
Happy New Year.
Oh, look at that! Was one of those like what's happening? Because it's always like,
Hey.
are you?
Hey.
You know, it's gonna.
Handshakes are so awkward now.
Yeah, it's like
Hey,
it's like Tai Chi. So Tyler, we're on what is it? Number 8.
We're on number 8 of our 9 pillars of dental marketing.
We had a little pause. We were gonna do 8 and 9 with Dr. Ed Lowe, but we got sick, so we wanted to protect his,
Didn't want to bring him into an environment where he could potentially catch something he didn't want.
Yeah,
Be safe.
But you did 2 tests, and they both came back negative.
I did 2 PCR tests myself during that time period. Both came back negative.
Yeah.
And then Katrina also did one, my wife, and she came back negative as well. So all are healthy.
Which is great, because they were $150 per test, and because we're so connected, you are my bubble. You essentially tested me.
My test is your test.
Yes, so thank you.
It's a song.
Yes,
My test is your test.
It is not like that. That was a 2020 song. Anyways,
Wow.
we're
That's a whole new level of bad jokes.
here. We are. We're getting derailed before we even
We are.
head down the track.
Okay, so number 8, we're talking about converting marketing traffic at the front end.
Yes,
Also known as the reception area, your front end team.
super important.
Whoever answers the phone, whoever talks to patients as they come to your practice.
Mhm. And I want to emphasize today that we are not pointing fingers at the front end. We are talking about how important the front end is in this process. So
Absolutely, yeah.
this process is the following. And now, if you want to see all this information, you can go and watch episodes 1 to 7. I highly recommend you do. There's some really great information there.
Yeah, they're really getting a lot of traction too. A lot of people are watching them.
Yeah.
I think they're getting some nice talking points out of them.
And if you've watched them already, let us know what you think. If you have
You like
anything to add too,
Yeah.
we're always open to hearing more information or criticisms or whatever. Like if it's criticisms, maybe not. Like just mind your own business. I'm just kidding.
We have other websites you can go to for that.
So number 1, and the first pillar is your website. So this will be very high level. If you want to go listen to more information, go watch the actual pillar. So number 1 is the website. Is it a maze? Can the patient navigate through and find what they need to find and not click off because it's not set up for mobile, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
You
can't hire a marketing expert to tell the folks that we know
Mhm.
to give you a rank on your website, tell you how it's performing. So
Yeah.
always worth the time to look at.
Yeah. Number 2 is SEO. So now where does your website sit in the internet? So where does it rank? Where is it being seen? Does Google now value the information and now putting it in front of people that are searching? That's where your reviews at. That's another huge piece to that as well. The next piece is domain authority. So where do you sit within your industry is the next piece. And there is a whole science in making sure that your website is, when somebody types in your service in your industry, you're popping up on that first page.
Yeah, and do other websites that are, whether through backlinks or however they're
Mhm.
connected, do other websites vouch for yours?
Right.
There's a what's the word I used before? It's, basically like a validation process for other websites. Think highly of your website,
Mhm.
and you're connected. You'll get a better rank that way.
That's right. And these search engines have a way to determine how that works. And again, if you want to find out more information, go back to our the first pillars. The next piece is content. So it starts off with, you discovering your brand. Who are you? What are you looking for? What's your best ideal patient? What's your story? Why did you get into dentistry? Your team, like what sets your team aside? So figuring all of these things out and making a shopping list of, which is the next pillar, and that's content generation. So now you know what you need to take pictures of, videos of, write copy for, and then generation. The next piece is creation. So now
generation, just going back to that real quick,
Yeah.
that's like brainstorming. That's like spitball.
Yes.
You can create anything.
Yes.
Any kind of content, you create it, you throw it in Google Drive, you keep it there. You might create a piece of content that you're not going to use for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep it there and say, what, at some point we're going to use that for something. I'm not sure what yet.
Yeah.
And then we move to the next step, which
is creation. So, and I'll add to that too, Tyler. That's a really good point. So, part of that is what are people going to see? How do you feel like people are going to connect with you in your practice? It's super imperative that, in this process of content creation, your message is being heard, your message is being connected with. So they see you, they see what you have to say. It might not be a stock photo. It might be a photo of you and why you're passionate to do dentistry, and maybe it's a patient review that's come through your system and they're better off for it. So
yeah. And you're not going to get it right the first time.
No.
You might not get it right until you get the 10th piece of content or 20th or whatever it is.
That's right.
The most important part is that you're generating a lot, you're putting it aside, and you start thinking about what you want to create with it. Mm-hmm. And knowing that, hey, some things work, some things don't. That's just part of the game.
Yeah. And then the next important piece is curation. So this, for me, this is where I like to exist. It's like a video game to me. It's taking this beautiful piece of content, you've poured your thought into it, and where is it best suited? Now, is it best suited as a mail-out flyer? Is it best suited as a Google ad? Is it best suited on Facebook? And then on that, who's seeing it? So within these platforms, you can identify your demographics. That is curation. From that, we get to the 7th pillar.
We're going to do like a drum roll.
Oh, not yet. Our drum roll's coming up after 7 because we're on 8 today.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Sorry, I was premature on my drum roll.
Oh, derailed again.
So
okay.
excited.
So number 7 is now your content's in the place that you think it's going to convert high quality patient traffic. So number 7 is patient traffic types. So everything's about conversion, right? And that's what we're fixated on, and that's what our clients are fixated on. You have tons of things, like tons of metrics that I like to refer to as vanity metrics. So if you're online and you're looking for likes or follows or that kind of thing, those might turn, like, that's not wrong. Like those are good too, because people will be following you and your content, and the likelihood of them becoming a patient of record in the future is that much higher because they're seeing you, like, you're becoming more familiar, more
You're becoming
trusted.
increasingly more top of mind. The more of your content they see, the more you will hang out in the brain cells back there somewhere.
That's right, and they might refer you, and it will turn into sort of more of a long-term investment in content creation and getting that patient in the practice. But what we're looking at is that's organic type of traffic, and now curation is there's curating organic traffic and curating paid traffic, which is you're paying now for this traffic, which is flyers or as all the things that I mentioned before, but with patients with intent. So we want to convert these patients. That's the name of the game. All of this wonderful stuff, these websites that look great, the time that we spent to figure out our brand and create that content, the goal of all of this is to increase that number of people that see that stuff and filter through with intent to come to your practice. So now, number 8, drum roll. And I'm pretty excited today because we have a pretty awesome guest on today.
Yes, we do.
So let's tee it up here, Ty.
Okay.
Number 8.
Should I jump right in?
Jump into it.
Number 8 is converting patient traffic at
So
Today we're very fortunate to have with us Teresa Smith from Optimized Dental. Teresa, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing fantastic.
how did we do there? Did we like ramble too
Did we,
much? What do you think? Do you feel like you learned something
did we
today?
bring everybody? Was it a nice recap on all the previous 7 points?
Yeah, it was great. I learned a lot. I mean, I'm always learning, so I feel like every new experience I get, I learn something out of it. But yeah, there's some things in there that I didn't even think about. You broke it down very nicely,
Oh,
and it
thanks.
has a very thorough view on what marketing is in dentistry right now.
So this is
Thank you.
thank you, and it all leads to it all leads to your world now. So we've done all this cool stuff to make sure that we have these quality leads coming through the funnel through the website, and now they're calling the front desk, and it's out of our hands
So
at this point.
we've gone through these 7 pillars already. We've invested our time. The dentist has invested their time. They're like, okay, great. I'm a believer. I understand what you guys are doing. I see the results. Let's get there. Let's get the traffic. Let's get the patients calling. And now we've got patients calling the office, and we're about to hand the ball over, and the ball disappears. So let's jump into who's Teresa Smith. Tell us about Optimized Dental, and tell us where, let's talk about where our world meets your world.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I love how you said the ball disappeared and it didn't even just drop. It just like is gone.
Just poof. Yeah.
Because that is basically why I kind of started Optimized Dental. Part of our mission, I guess, in for Optimized Dental is to really help educate people on administrative duties, the front end of dentistry, and as well as the business aspects of dentistry. So we spend a lot of time educating, training, teaching, showing examples, and helping dentists, office managers, and front end teams learn to grow and be better at their jobs, which in turn levels up patient care, which in turn makes the dentist who owns the practice super happy
Mm-hmm.
because they're meeting all of their kind of goals for their practice, which are generally good clinical culture, good patient care, good clinical care. So yeah, I think that's kind of what Optimize does. We offer different training stuff virtually. We offer in-house training, clinic rehabilitations. We just do a lot to kind of get things going. COVID kind of hit hard and a bit dirty, and so we're kind of getting in there, trying to clean things up and help clinics. And I think a lot of people left dentistry as well during that time, which
Right.
left us with a lot of new people to dentistry, which is probably why we're seeing a lot of these the balls disappearing, not just dropping and lagging, but
Mm-hmm.
actually gone.
We have a particular story about
Well, yeah.
like
I
a
mean,
drop ball.
it's a number.
It kills me.
It
It
really is
kills
a
me.
number of stories, right? So, and I've heard this a number of times where a patient will, follow the 7 steps, or come through the Dentist on Demand marketing stream, contact one of our clients, and then say, hey, I'm pre-qualified for an ungodly amount of dental work which I need done, whether it's implants or uh, you know reconstructive surgery, whatever it is. Like if they're already pre-qualified for a certain amount of work, and the front end team really kind of fumbles it, right? Like they kind of like, what, we're not open that day, or before even checking with the dentist, they'll sort of, you know, they'll really kind of lose the case for the dentist. Where before even checking with them to say, what, we may have some wiggle room here. We can open on that day, or we can make an exception in this case. Do you see situations like that happening a lot?
Yeah, we do see a lot of that, and I think it just comes stems from a lot of people new to dentistry. I think in the world before, we were seeing dentists had quite small crews and single practice ownership, right? And so then they had more of a connection with their front end team, and they realized, oh, the dentist is stressed about the schedule not being full, or dentist stressed about this. That kind of was communicated more towards the front end staff. They were bigger part of the business aspect, I think, a long time ago. And so they were, writing checks and seeing how much money was going out and seeing what payroll was like because they were in charge of it. And like there was just a lot of things that I think the front end, we'll say even 10 years ago, was really in charge of. And then we started seeing dentistry develop and grow. And then we started seeing that responsibility being shifted to, QuickBooks, and being shifted to other programs and platforms, which means the education level of that front end administrator kind of dropped. Those people are retired. New people were brought in at a lesser wage. They do not need to know as much because technology ended up coming in and kind of building that platform out for them, which is great advances to technology, great advances for dentistry, dentist time. But we are seeing now like maybe a less of education of how dentistry works. There's less communication from the back end to the front end. Dentists are in clinic longer hours. They're working harder than they've ever worked before, and they are trying to build bigger practices than they ever did before. They're extended hours, they're bringing on associates, and so just the way dentistry has pivoted, no one has spent a lot of time or effort on the administrative side. They spent a lot of time on the clinical side. We have seen development in dental
Clinical
assistants,
processes.
we've seen
Yeah.
development in hygiene, we've seen, consultants, and we've seen training programs for the clinical side. There's a huge amount of effort being done for patient care on the clinical side, but front end administrators, not as much. And so these new people that are coming into dental, and I was a new person at once too, came in totally green and had to learn from the ground up. So I know exactly what that's like. It's awful. Dental is very difficult. It's very complex. It's very intricate. And you're working with dentists who are very complex and very A-type personality, because you have to be that way to be a good dentist. And so you're seeing that happen, and the amount of pressure on the front end to know things, but you don't really know anything is difficult. And so we just see the gap now because it's been highlighted, because they fixed all the other problems and put effort into other problems, and we're seeing that pretty much in every clinic. The basics of filling a schedule, I'm not seeing. The basics of how to politely answer a phone call and get a patient into the chair, I'm not seeing. Not as commonly. There's a lot of veteran receptionists out there that are getting paid a really good wage, and they are worth their weight in gold because they know how to do all of that.
Right.
A lot of these junior admins that are coming in don't understand how it works. They don't know that when they say just blanket answers and hang up the phone, that not only did they lost an opportunity of one person, they might have lost an opportunity of an entire family, or they might have lost an opportunity, to grow the clinic in a different way that might have been possible that we just didn't understand or talk about, or just because they didn't ask the question, just because they said, this is it, this is the black and white. And
so where do you come in that process? Is that just a conversation? Is that like setting up we'll use our example, is it, if the case is more than a $5,000 case, we're open on the Saturday? Is it setting up procedure, would you say would benefit?
I got to wait. I had kind of the same question, and I think it's kind of the same as what you're asking.
Yeah.
Because we fixate on having, talking to our clients about having a standard of care clinically. So how often you want to see the patient, how much radiography you want them to have, their recall, how many exams, yada, yada, yada. So we talk about standard of care really kind of from a clinically driven perspective. Is there could there be like a standard of care from the reception side as well? And I think that's kind of
you nailed it.
Kind of the same question Mark's
sure.
asking, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, there should be a standard of care, just the way things operate in your clinic, protocols, systems, all that kind of stuff set up. For sure, that needs to happen. You cannot build a good foundation, and you cannot build on a faulty foundation. So if you don't have those protocols and set up, then you're not going to see any growth out of your practice, especially on the administrative side. However, there needs to be flexibility in that as well, because dentistry is pivoting consistently right now. And kind of what we talked about before the podcast started was, we're going to see some fantastic things out of dentistry in the next 10 years. They're really kind of expanding what the conformity used to be like, right? It used to be a Monday to Friday gig. Actually, it used to be a Monday to Thursday gig.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
The golf day is gone.
Yeah. Every weekend was a long weekend for dentists, you know. And I just was thinking back to when I first started. It was Monday to Thursday. It was fantastic. And I think, well, we need to get back to that. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's not where dentistry is. And so now it's like, and then it went to Monday to Friday, and then people were saying, well, you know what? There's a ton of people that work Monday to Friday that can't come see us. So now we're Monday to Saturday, and actually there's a lot of clinics that are 7 days a week. There's a lot of clinics that open up every night. There's a lot of clinics that have really just pivoted the way that they've done dentistry. It's not perfect for everyone and not perfect for every region for sure, but if it works for you, it's fantastic. There's definitely business models that reflect that. So it just depends on what the dentist wants. If he's struggling to fill his chairs, you know, and he wants to see more out of his administrative team, then that's a conversation that he needs to have with someone like me, or someone that his administrative team, his operations manager, if you have one, or his office manager, if you have one, or his administrative lead. Those are conversations that need to happen all the time. And I was just on a recent podcast with another person, and we just talked about how you need to share your vision about where you want your clinic to go with your team, because if you're not sharing your vision, how are they supposed to know that you would be flexible to open up on a Saturday if you've only ever said we're a Monday to Friday clinic?
How important is the morning huddle for that kind of stuff?
It's hilarious. We're on the same. I just was about to say that. I'm like, tell us about the morning huddle. Is it?
Yeah.
Would that include the front end team as well?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so I am a firm believer in a efficient morning huddle.
Okay.
I think morning huddles are garbage if you're not going to use them properly.
Right.
It's just a waste of time. You're going to have coffee with your employees, have coffee with your employees. But if you are going to have an efficient morning huddle, then really you need to have the entire team there for you. So I know lots of clinics divide up their teams. You know, if there's like multiple dentists in a clinic, they'll have like, I have my receptionist, I have my whatever, I have my RDA, I have my RDHs, I have myself, and we'll have our team huddle. If you have it set like that, then have everyone in there together. If you're multi-practice and you have one treatment coordinator, then I would have the treatment coordinator in there. I'm not sure that you need to have anybody else from the front end in there. And the treatment coordinator will then tell the administrative team that comes in a bit later, this is what's the plan for today, or this is what's going on. And they would communicate that down. Because the treatment coordinator is going to be able to keep an eye on it when the dentist isn't able to look at it all the time, right? They'll be able to like pivot a little bit faster for the dentist if they know the dentist's vision for what's supposed to happen that day. But ultimately, you know, there's tiers of responsibility or accountability in a practice. The dentist should be looking today, tomorrow, next week, the week after, the month down the road. Like those are all days, like every day that needs to happen. An office manager should be doing the exact same thing. And they should be communicating almost daily. And it's like, hey, how did today run? That wasn't great. This is what happened. And then that person needs to talk to them. If you don't have an office manager, then your team lead. If you don't have a team lead, then the person who's in charge of your schedule. You know, those are things that need to happen. And it really comes down to really strong communication and sharing the vision of the practice. You don't need to have like a 40-minute conversation about how, you know, you're frustrated that you're not making any money, but like a conversation about how, you know, this is where I'd like to see their practice, and this is kind of what I'm shooting for. So if this comes up, then let me know. You know, we need to talk about these things.
And I think a lot of it, you know, there could be some issues when it comes to decision making. Obviously, the practitioner is chairside, and they are super busy, and that's where the entire industry wants the practitioner as chairside, right? So, I think, you know, establishing some key situations that the people in the positions that have to make the choice or you know, get to the next step along the process, they sort of have some guidelines of, if this happens, then here's your reasonable answers for said situation.
Or like a case scenario.
Yeah, a case scenario. So you can, like, if you have that, well, we'll refer back to this legendary phone call that there was this giant
general. I like to put it generally. I've just seen it a few times, and it's like, okay, let's address that.
So you know, this call comes in. It's a patient that's looking for something that doesn't necessarily fall within what they perceive as the parameters of the practice. You know, there has to be maybe some decision making capability given to the people in their positions, so that they can, they
Some
can
discretion.
Yeah, so they can tackle some of these interesting
So
cases.
that's fantastic. And I think that is happening more and more because I think dentists have realized that they can't be in two places at once. I think
No.
it took them longer than most people to figure that out,
And
but this is where we're at. And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and I see a lot of practitioners out there that they are like very stressed because a lot of things are like they feel like that they're just not in their control. So I think establishing and this boils down to communication, right? Like, let's get everybody together and let's talk about some situations.
I see the frustration though.
Yeah.
Like I've sort of sat side by side with a lot of my clients and friends, and I see the frustration running a practice because you're really at the end of the day you're just there to have lots of patients that you can give good dentistry to,
Right.
provide good dentistry for,
Yeah.
and proper care. So when you're like, okay, I don't want to micromanage people,
Yeah.
right? They know, right? Like no one likes to be micromanaged, and most people know that. So if you're like, okay, I don't want to micromanage people, I want to make sure they know what they're doing. But then if they let it go too long and something's gone astray for a month or two, and you're like, oh my goodness, that cost me so much money by not paying attention to it for 2 months. So it's like that tricky balance of not wanting to micromanage somebody, but then also like, okay, well, what happens if I just let it ride and all of a sudden something's been going wrong for 2 months and I wasn't aware of it?
Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm going to say too, and I'm okay getting into a little bit of trouble with this one. And
Just don't get me in trouble.
And this is the case, for every job or place of work out there, they're always like, there's a lot of bad seeds maybe in a practice, and they might be, not following along with process.
I wouldn't say a lot. I say it just takes one.
Yeah, well, and that's true. Like, then that's true along other industries. So I'm going to throw it back at you, Teresa. How do we address that? And is that like coming up with standard protocol? How do we do that? How do we get through that?
So I'm going to go back to dentists don't have very much time in their clinical. Everyone wants them in the clinical chair. So that couldn't be more true. And if I countered that conversation of, I lost so much money because I didn't focus on this thing as much as I should have. If you counted up all of your losses, that if you could actually account for all of your losses of money that you just because you didn't have time to put it towards paying attention to, would that not be best to hire an office manager and then mitigate those losses, capture them, and then potentially grow them because you can only do so much in 8 hours in a day. And your staff isn't going to stick around and listen to you harp at them after their pay is done, right? So they're going to work their 8 hours and they're going to go home. And then by the time you have time to talk to them, and heaven forbid you have time to talk to them during the day because then your schedule is falling apart. But after the day is done, you don't have time to talk to them and you're not going to pay them overtime to talk to them about something that they should have been doing during the day.
Right.
So if you have someone to do something for you and you give them the guidelines, when I went to corporate dentistry, that's essentially what structure is like. And I really think it's a smart structure. They put a lot of time and effort in educating their office managers and the one that I worked on. And we had huge success because the office managers run the practice and they're given certain guidelines and responsibilities and accountability. So if you structure it that way, then the dentist can focus on dentistry. And then the office manager just follows up with the dentist. This is what happened today. This is what I seen here. This is what I did. Okay. And if you screw up and they didn't give them the answer that they want, guess what? Okay, they learned that situation and they moved on. And after about a year, that office manager is going to be able to answer most questions the way the dentist wants them. She's going to be able to capture he is going to be able to capture the growth. He's going to be able to share the vision. They're going to be able to manage the thing. And then you've basically duplicated yourself. But how many dentists are willing to spend time training someone to do the things that they need to do during that time? And that's kind of the holdup. That's kind of the frustration is dentists don't have enough time to deal with it. Never mind train someone to deal with it. And that's kind of the gap. And so that's kind of where we have been coming in and being, okay, well, you don't know how to do that. Maybe you can send them to office manager school and we can help train them and we coach them and we kind of virtually will teach them the things they need to know and teach them how to deal with difficult people, such as the little toxic people that we all know are in the clinic, bad seeds, whatever you want to call them. There's usually one or two of them. And we teach them how to deal with those people and either motivate them to bring them up to whatever needs to happen, teach them how to be accountable for their actions, or we weed them out and we bring someone else in and we teach the dentist and the office manager how to weed them out appropriately. If we can't get them going and we teach them everything that we need to know and they still aren't performing and they're still pushing back and causing problems, we know that those people aren't going to be a good fit for the clinic, and we then train someone else into that role and let that person go.
I prefer to call them non-compliant.
Sure, that's a great term. I like it. I mean, whatever you want to call them,
have a different
they're
vision.
just not the best fit for the clinic.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
when they're causing more harm than good, then you have to do something about it, because you get into a situation. I see this all the time. It's probably the number one thing is like, well, I have this person and they're really great at their job, but they're so bad in the clinic. They cause so much drama. And it's like, well, okay, well then what are you weighing here? Do you want everyone to be good at their job, or do you want everyone else to be miserable and you lose 3 other people because that one person's good at their job?
And you know what, Teresa? I've seen this so many times.
Yeah, I've got a scenario too.
Okay,
go ahead. I have a scenario, so I don't want to forget it.
And I just want to throw a bit in here too. It's hard too right now because there's such a shortage of people out there too, right? So, anyways, go ahead.
The scenario that I want to throw at you, Teresa, is you just bought a practice. They've got 2 or 3 front end team members, and then they've got 2 CDAs, 2 hygienists, and you just met them day one. You have your own processes, way of doing things, which is very different from the way it's been done for the last 20 years. Isn't everybody non-compliant at that point? Like, is that not a monumental task to now try to get, like, hey, I'm the new dentist, I'm the new owner, I want to try to retain these people because they've been here for 20 years and they've been doing it a certain way. And I'm not a mind reader. I don't know how they've been doing it for 20 years, but I'm coming in and saying, well, here's how I'm used to doing it. Is there a way to mitigate that, to minimize how many people leave the practice because you're not going to do it their way?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I'm working with a practice right now where they bought out a practice that has been running for forever. And it was a husband and wife dentists, and they're both dentists, and they're both working in the practice, and they're both kind of managing the practice as well. And they said they're brand new to this and they wanted some help. So they brought me in to kind of help them mitigate the transition, to kind of get the team motivated on the same page, but then also to bring them up to a different bar, because it really had just been running on its own the way it had been running for a long time. And so as we make the transitions, we go over all of those discussions. Anytime we make a change, the first thing I ask is, well, how do you think that person's going to react to that change? And then say, okay, well, if that's how you think the person's going to react, then we need to have a conversation with them. And it always, always, always comes down to communication. I'm not saying I'm magical, but I can talk to a person, and I think anybody can do this. If you talk to a person and say, hey, listen, this is what I need to see the company, or this is where I need to see the practice, or this is where I need to see the patient numbers, or this is what I need, and say, how do you think we can get there? And you put it back on them and they give you ideas, and you're not in your own brain saying this is 100% the way it has to be done. Because guess what? People under you are smart too. People under you have good ideas. And there is no one way to run a practice. That's why it always goes back to the people first. Yes. Figure out who they are, figure out what their talents are, because I can organize any practice based on anybody that's in there, develop on their talents, because that's where I put my energy. You're good at this job. This is what we're going to move on towards. This is how we're going to kind of hone you so that you're an integral part of the practice. And we're going to hone this person who's a wonderful person at this job. And sometimes I'll switch them up. You know what? You've been in treatment planning for so long and it's wonderful, but you're super talented at hygiene, and you're actually, I think, would be more beneficial to move you into hygiene and have this person into treatment because they have a surgical background, and now this dentist is moving into surgery. So sometimes it requires a amount of change, but change doesn't have to be bad if it's communicated well, discussed, and planned out. It's when you just say, tomorrow you're doing this and this is how I want it done, that's when you get pushback and you get those non-compliant people.
Totally. Right. And I'm going to correct you, Teresa. I think you are magical. So you definitely you like materialized in our world at like the perfect time. So this is really cool.
She's a wizard, not a prophet.
Oh, she's a wizard.
Yeah.
This is
Don't call me either of those things. I do not need those titles right now.
your head is going to be
my
like
own title.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we were debating on wizards and prophets earlier today.
Yeah,
so
and we were also debating on Star Wars and Star Trek.
yes, we were.
So we won't go there.
Oh,
So-
it's a deep conversation.
It was
So now just to go back to our world of marketing, okay? So
Mhm.
so if you this is a sharp left turn. So all that feedback is fantastic.
amazing,
I
yes.
love all
Thank
the
you.
talking points that you have for us on this. Getting back to the marketing angle. So when we talk to dentists about marketing or clients, we talk about something called bounce rate. Have you heard of bounce rate before on websites? What that is?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
perfect.
so you know
Of
what a bounce
course you
rate is,
have.
and for anyone watching, bounce rate is when somebody comes and looks at your website and they immediately bounce off it after 5 seconds or whatever the time duration is. And so we liken that same bounce rate to someone calling the office. So, Peter, Mark and I, I saw Peter's name come up
Peter
on my
Pan.
phone.
We're talking about magic.
That's right. So same thing. I think a similar principle applies in dentistry when someone's calling the office. We want to try to minimize that bounce rate when they're calling the office, and then obviously they bounce off, whether it's they don't like the hours, something about the conversation that happened turned them off of the office and they bounced, right? So do you address that as well when you train offices, when you talk to them, when you consult with them? Do you address this with the front end team?
Yeah, so we go over a lot of verbiage. We go over a lot of like communication styles. We go over like texting communication, which is like really great. I love that dental is like using texting and all that stuff, but I am just finding that people, texting back to a patient like KK and, and after they've secured an appointment. And I'm just like,
God.
Yeah. Okay, that's maybe not what we want to do. Or someone I seen, not that long ago, or someone cracked a joke back at them. They're like, I guess I should bring my teeth to this appointment. And they didn't even respond to the joke. And I just thought, okay, like that's a thing. These are things that are happening. And so we're having these conversations saying, okay, I didn't realize. And for me too, like I'm learning every day.
We all are. We all should be, right?
This new generation of people coming into dental, they don't know the professional standard of which we are trying to keep, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, the world's professionalism has dropped and you see more people, CEOs wearing ripped jeans and whatever. And it's exciting. I love it.
That's my day.
On the flip side, when you're that person, don't get me wrong, but but the professionalism in dentistry we don't want to see that drop. We don't want to see that degrade. And so, having these conversations like, we just need to be a little bit more professional, which means break it down even further, like how we address people in communication, how we address people on the phone, and then we also need to bring in the secondary part of this, which is, every receptionist or every administration person is in sales. And I hate to say it, it's Sally, you're in sales. Every single phone call that comes in, it's a pitch. If they don't like you, they're not going to come in, and you're the face of the clinic. And so if you're constantly in a bad mood, you're not going to get butts and chairs. And if you don't get butts and chairs, guess what? Your butt's not going to be in a chair because you're going to have to lose your job. And that's just essentially it. If the dentist can't afford to keep you on, it's a very quick turnaround. Dentists are small business owners. If there's no product production in the clinic, they immediately have to cut things. They can't just keep paying people because they like them. It's a business. We need to be, that needs to be a kind of in the foresight of our mind, just thinking about all of these things as an administrator. And that has never really been talked to administrators before. That's just not been discussed. It's like, here's how to book an appointment and answer the phones. Well, now you need to know all of this information, plus you need to be able to sell it to a patient. Mm-hmm. And that's just simple things we're checking out. And the patient comes out from the checkout desk, at the end and is like, oh, you know what? The dentist said I need a crown, but I don't even know what that is. And it's like, well, maybe the dentist talked to them about the chair, but they get fight or flight response and they don't remember anything that happened in the chair, and they come out and they're like, I don't know what a root canal is. And the receptionist is going, well, you need one. So when do you want to book it? And it's
when
like,
can I book you?
Okay, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like they immediately move to when can I book you? When it's like, take a couple steps back and say, oh, okay, well, let's talk about a root canal, what a root canal is and why you might need that.
Yeah, and or just take a step back. Oh, you know what? You don't understand. No problem. I'm gonna grab the RDA and just bring her back
Yeah,
out here,
yeah,
and
yeah.
she'll just have a quick conversation. While she's doing that, I'm gonna send it off to your insurance, and just so you have all the information when you go home today, you can make a better decision. And we want to make
Awesome.
sure that you're getting the best care possible. And then they feel comfortable. When people feel comfortable, they trust you. When they trust you, they do
Totally.
business with you, which means they'll do dentistry with you. All of these relationships are built on trust. If you don't have the professionalism to build that trust, you're not going to secure the appointment. You're not going to secure the appointment. You're not going to be able to fill the chair. Those are all the things that kind of go hand in hand. And just teaching these front end administrators, sometimes even RDAs, we're seeing that happen too. RDAs are different than they used to be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. They're just not the same as they used to be. We're seeing them come out of school really fast. They don't really know as much as they used to. They're not being mentored when they come out of school as much. It's just like get in, do what you do, and no one's checking up on their accountability. Same thing happens in admin. So we're just seeing that there's definitely a gap, but I feel like there's people out there that are trying their best to educate them and kind of help grow them. And yeah, get them
I get
into
that
sales.
call.
Like what's happening right now? Like where are these folks going right now? Like other than, your services, where are they turning to? Is it colleagues? Like are they just kind of
How are they getting this
are
education?
they floating along just trying to figure it out along the way? Like what are you saying?
I am not, well, I don't think there's a lot of people out doing what I'm doing right now. There's a
I don't
few
think so. Yeah.
companies. Yeah, there's a few companies, I think, in Canada that are
hmm
doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
But we are seeing most of the experience gained from getting either fired from clinics or not being frustrated that they can't accomplish what they need to
hmm
in clinic, and then moving to another clinic and then learning a little bit here and here and here and here and patching it all together, which is not effective and is
No.
really, I think, why we see a huge turnover. When I was looking at the statistics for dental assistants, I think they work less than 4 years or something now before they're out of dental assisting. So a 4 year, that's how long
Really?
the
I th-
average
and I
dental
think
assistant is in there for 4 years. So it's
yeah,
just crazy.
and I think it's gotten worse with COVID. I think I'm going to
Yes.
say I'm going to speculate that turnover in the last 2 years has gone through the roof.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and dentists have been more stressed, like you said,
hmm
which then turns up turns the culture a little bit. It's
Totally.
A little
not the
toxic.
happiest place to work,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it's their fault. I just
No,
completely understand. It's just the situation that we're in,
they're
and when the
human.
stress
Yeah.
level goes up in a clinic, then people have a hard time working there because they don't want to deal with the stress and they don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. No expectations have been laid. No accountability has been done. They're not getting a 90-day review after they start their job. They're not
hmm
having, they're just, you're done tomorrow. I can't train you anymore. We need to find
hmm
someone who knows what they're
Yeah,
doing.
you
And
don't get it.
then
You got to
someone
go.
who knows what they're doing is getting paid $30 an hour. And then the dentist is mad because they're paying so much money, but they don't have to train them,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's a bit crazy right now.
it's
No,
a
it
challenge.
is. It absolutely is. I couldn't agree with everything that you've just said.
And I get phone going back to the communication, Teresa. Um, a lot of my friends know I'm in dental, so I'll get that phone call every once in a while. Hey Tyler, my dentist says I need a root canal. Do you think I really need that? And it's gonna cost me. It's gonna cost me $2,000. Do you think I really need that? And I'm like, since when am I a dentist? What? How does that?
Yeah,
How am I in any way
send me your
qualified?
rads.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, how am I in any way qualified to give you any input on that?
I got the answers. Go to Dentist on Demand.
Yeah, good at SMN. But what that tells me is that going back to your communication with when the treatment's been dispensed or the whatever they're prescribing to be done happens, and then I get the phone call saying, "Hey, this dentist says I need a root canal. It's going to cost me $2,000. What do you think?" I'm like, "Well, okay, hold on. Did they explain to you why I need a root canal? Did they tell you what it is? So then I started to think, okay, well now clearly some communication has been missed. That's the first thing that goes through my mind. So you're bang on with the communication, right? As soon as the dentist might not want to explain that, but please, please, please have somebody in the office who can and will explain that to the patient so that, like you said, they do have an understanding that this is really geared towards their oral health care.
Yeah.
It's not about doing a procedure on you that's going to make you $2,000. It's about, hey, this is what, as a clinical professional, this is what I determine to be the best route of action for your oral health.
Mm-hmm.
Does everyone agree with me? Maybe not, but 8 out of 10 dentists probably agree with me that yes, you do need a root canal.
Yeah, we just see that happen. That communication breakdown is huge. When you're growing practices or you're dealing with associates that are new out of school, that don't know how to communicate why they're diagnosing what they're diagnosing, or you're getting a new treatment coordinator that isn't as eloquent at expressing why this is, backing the dentist up, why this treatment is necessary, or not understanding the financial side of it. And I think a lot of this happens, and maybe I think a lot of this happens on the financial end too, is they get the sticker price in the chair. First thing that someone says, and I've seen this 1,000 times, first thing that someone says, oh, you need a root canal, they go, how much is that costing me? And they said, oh, around the $1,500 to $2,000 mark. They immediately shut down. They're not having a conversation with you anymore. All they can think about is, why is that so expensive? What am I doing? Can't afford that. What do I have to give up? All of these conversations are going through their head. Well, meanwhile, the dentist is going, okay, well, here's why. Let's look at the rad. Let's look at, the root and, what's going on here. There's, apical lesions. There's whatever's going on, right? Like there's all this information, but the patient is just done. They're stopped listening. They're not communicated. So those are kind of things that we like to mitigate and push them into a treatment coordination chair, saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to talk to you about price. I want to talk to you about the clinical side of things. Do you have a minute to sit with me? I want to make sure you understand what's going on in your mouth. And then I'm going to send you to the treatment coordinator or the front end reception or administration. And then they're going to talk to you about the financials after I've had a chance to explain why I want to support this decision.
So Teresa, I'm gonna ask you right here. Sorry I cut you off.
No,
I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good.
Great point though. That was awesome.
So this is our next discussion that we're gonna have is recall and getting people back into the practice.
Oh yeah, that's right. We don't want to give it all away this episode.
The case acceptance thing. Do you want to come on our next show and talk about all like the next step, recall?
Sure, I would love that. It would
We'd
be
love
fantastic.
to have you back.
There you heard it here first.
Did you want to ask her? Now I know we're running long because we want to sort of.
It's hilarious. We said, in the beginning, we always do this too. Anyway.
Let's keep it to 20 minutes.
Tyler and I have this conversation before each one. We're like, Ty,
let's tighten it up.
Nobody's going to listen past 20 minutes. So let's hit it on 20 minutes. But like this conversation has been awesome. And I hope there's still some folks listening in because
of course
this is awesome. Great information. Thank you so much for your time.
People are going to listen to this point because Teresa's giving us a lot of great information.
Yeah.
Now, before we start wrapping things up here, did we want to touch on?
Yes, because I think this is a huge part of before we're showing up to the practice. And, we've dabbled in this tool, like COVID kind of made this tool like a thing, I think, right? And it's been borrowed from the medical world is teledentistry. Now it's a tool that we offer in our basket of goods, and we've seen it been used with success. So, whether it's a treatment coordinator talking about a case or talking about the practice, we've seen the case where there's somebody flying in from actually Edmonton into Vancouver to get treatment.
As a result of a teledentistry consult.
Yeah. So do you have firsthand experience of seeing that teledentistry tool in action, or what are your I want to get your thoughts from the clinical perspective of that tool.
So I have actually quite a bit of experience with this because when COVID originally hit, we had obviously a massive shutdown, right? And like everyone, but when you work in corporate dentistry, they don't like shutdowns. So we had to come up with something because we have, I think we had 6 practices in that region that I was in, and they had basically how many patients? I think we were looking at 20,000 patients that now didn't have access to a dentist. And, we're looking at these numbers of patients, and yet we're responsible to deal with these patients. You can't just pass them off, I don't know about in BC, but in Alberta, they had the ADA&C said, you can shut down your practice, but you still have to have access and talk to these patients and make sure they're, out of trauma, out of pain,
for emergencies.
Like that. Emergency dental, basically. But we had to set up an infrastructure for that. So we created a hotline for our patients. We created a hotline for anyone really, because a lot of dentists just shut down and didn't have the resources to do it. We created a hotline. We had office managers man it. We had certain hours that they needed to be available for it. And they would just come in and request their appointments through the phone. It was all done through, I think we had like an EC Soft, basically a phone VoIP. And we had a database that I had set up that we all, I think it was Microsoft, because we had Microsoft OneDrive and we had a database in there, and we patient name recorded what they were asking for. They were all of the calls were voice recorded so that we could refer back to them. We would establish it. We'd send them out email them out a sheet that they would fill out. We'd send it to the practitioner closest to them. The practitioner then would call the office or call the patient, deal with it, write all the clinical notes, everything that needs to be done. It would then get sent back to the office manager, to their correlating office manager, which would then put it into the system. So the dentist actually never had to be in the clinic. They were just on call at home. If we need to bring them in the office, then they would structure an appointment and we would follow up with the patient and bring them into the clinic. At that point, we were doing very little aerosols, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we had done teledentistry. It was very, very successful, and it helped a lot of patients out because a lot of patients didn't have access to it through their regular practice, and so we were able to help them out, and then we just sent them back to their regular practice.
That's awesome. Yeah, and another thing that you mentioned in there is digital forms, and I think that was another gift that was accelerated from COVID too.
Yes, it's been wonderful.
I like hearing that side of it. So seeing where you've got 20,000 patients and you got to find a way to service them, which, I mean, the world sort of saw it happen. The flip side of it that we saw was that we were setting up these teledentistry portals for our clients, and they were going on and having face-to-face meetings and selling orthodontic cases. They were selling cosmetic cases, like large veneer cases.
Yeah.
Really nice aesthetic cases that were, it started with a face-to-face conversation over teledentistry. So that, like with ortho, for example, they could say, okay, let's take a look at your smile. Talk to us a little bit about how you want to improve your smile. And we saw a number of our clients using it to great success, where they would just log on at the end of the day, spend an hour doing some virtual consults, primarily ortho driven, and really bringing patients into the office through that process.
That's cool.
Yeah, I did see a lot of orthodontists using it, and it was very interesting to see them come out with that. And maybe that's why ortho was up 35% last year.
Yeah,
is that right? Oh, I you know what? Yeah,
is that, and then the Zoom effect where everyone could see their face as they were talking, and they're like, "Man, oh man, I need some dental work done."
But also, you're wearing a mask all the time, so if you end up having to go into brackets, no one's seen them if you're masking up all the time.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That's a good conspiracy theory. Dental conspiracy theory.
Man, oh man, Teresa, we went through a lot of stuff today. This was great.
Awesome. And thank you so much for your time, Teresa. This has been fantastic.
Yeah. No, you guys have been fantastic. I really appreciate the invite on. And I'm excited to do this again.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you're coming on for our 9th pillar, and let's talk recall.
Yeah, we're gonna jump into recall and
patient
intake.
Patient intake.
And the next steps in the process. And there's a lot of sort of trinkets along the way to discuss too. So there's a lot in these topics, a lot under the Optimized Dental banner to talk about. And we're really excited to have you on again.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back.
Thanks, Teresa. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.